Beijing acknowledges now that they don't think it originated in that market.
Well, it may not have originated in the market, but it certainly could have. I think you could say we don't know how and where it originated.
He can't quit the wet market theory. So why should we trust them now? Here now to react, a man in the middle of it. Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul. Senator, thank you so much for joining Fox News Primetime. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we have the introduction of Omicron. You have the way in which the South African doctor has characterized it, which is thankfully unusually mild. Yet when you watch the media, elected officials, they're on hyperdrive on the fear index. Your response to where we are right now with this now third iteration?
You know, I think the hysteria gets the better of the media, and we need to calm down, take a breath, and see what this is. Now, if it turned out to be worse, then we're going to have to, make some decisions. But it looks like, and this is what happens a lot of times with viruses, as they mutate, they become more transmissible, more easily contagious, but a lot of times they become less deadly. And that's what the reports are, at least the initial reports from South Africa are, more transmissible, but fortunately less deadly.
Senator, do you agree or disagree with the decision to institute a travel ban in South Africa and surrounding countries? Remember, Joe Biden characterized it as utterly racist against black and brown people for Donald Trump to do so. Now they're doing it, but it could wait until Monday.
It's incredibly hypocritical for him to have criticized Trump and now do the same thing. But if you ask me just about bans in general don't work. Almost nothing that man does works to slow down the spread of a virus. The vaccine works and natural immunity. Everything else we've done could have possibly delayed it a little bit, but really probably has done little, if nothing, to changing the trajectory of things. Every time we've instituted a mandate, whether it be masked or social distancing or how many people can be at a restaurant or how late you can get a drink at a bar, none of this affected the trajectory of the virus. The virus has moved. The numbers of viral infections per day have moved regardless of what man has tried to do. Other than the vaccine, and the vaccine was working pretty well in May of April, but now the vaccine isn't working so well and the virus is escaping it. So the one thing they could do, they're not doing, and that is we should allow for a new vaccine to be introduced. They have it waiting, but they're not doing anything to introduce the new vaccine.
Why would they not introduce a new vaccine?
You know, that's a good question. I think, well, maybe they bought a lot of the old one. They haven't used it up yet, and maybe they're trying to be frugal. Maybe somebody has something invested in the old one, but the old one isn't working so well. It probably does reduce your risk of severe hospitalization still and death, but it's not really fighting off the virus at a level where we really could change the trajectory. In April and May of this year, we got down to less than 10,000 cases a day. We did that when the first vaccine was very, very effective. When we got the Delta variant, now that it dominates, the vaccine isn't as effective as it was. And we have a new vaccine. It's sitting there. We approve a new vaccine for the flu. They criticize Trump endlessly for, why doesn't he do the vaccine? We got a vaccine within 1 year. And why aren't they doing anything to introduce a new vaccine or to get the red tape out of the way? Let's get the new vaccine out and see if that helps everyone.
It's a good point. The guy who made a living getting rid of red tape got rid of it. He gets no credit for it. Now they can't seem to do anything similar now that we're in the middle of it. You alluded to it, Senator, the fact that things that we did in 2019 don't match the reality of where we are in 2021. Well, one man's been there the entire time. You know him well, Dr. Anthony Fauci. He had an interview on Sunday where he declared that he represents science. Take a listen.
Anybody who's looking at this carefully realizes that there's a distinct anti-science flavor to this. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. But if they get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci, well, people could recognize there's a person there, so it's easy to criticize. But they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
He represents science. I have a feeling he might be talking about you, Senator.
You know, when a government bureaucrat has the audacity, the arrogance to say they represent all of science, we should be running the other way. It conjures up images of the medieval church, in their repression of science. Science has nothing to do with having obedience to any kind of government dogma. And you have to realize that most of what Fauci talks about isn't science. He's not talking about a study on this or a study of that. He's talking about wear a mask. Well, when you talk about the peer-reviewed studies of masks, there was one done in Denmark, showed that it didn't work. work. When you look at all of Sweden, 1.8 million children have not been wearing masks for the last 2 years. They've had 0 COVID deaths. And you say, well, have the teachers been infected? Well, it turns out the teachers are infected at the same rate as the rest of the public. So they've had no mask for a year and a half, and it has worked, and that's a whole country. And there's no real discussion of this, because if you question him, and really that's public policy, that's not science, it's public policy backed by some science. But if you question him, oh, somehow you are questioning science because he represents all science, that is incredibly arrogant.
It really is. It conjures up Sylvester Stallone, I am the law. You know, at one point it becomes completely absurd, and as you pointed out, very, very arrogant. Senator Rand Paul, thank you so much for breaking down actual science for us.